John Granato here from the mornings on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. AJ Hoffman afternoons on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Let's talk a little Rockets basketball with them. Moving on from Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni. Will we see the Rockets move away from the analytic-driven gimmicks and get back to more traditional basketball? Like, for example, AJ, a center. Do you think that something crazy like having a tall person on an NBA court might happen for the Houston Rockets?
I would hope so. I would hope that they get away from the analytics belief that a mediocre three-point shooting team should lead the league in three-point attempts. There's some of the math that they were into just never added up for me. I do think the coaching change will make a big difference because I don't think there were a lot of coaches that can do what Mike D'Antoni did, and he got as much as he could out of the system that he was running. But I think any coach who took this gig had to say, listen, I got to play a little more traditional basketball, which I would assume means bringing in some sort of a tall person, as you say. The question then becomes, with the new GM here, where do you find said tall person? You have to make some sort of a trade. You don't have a lot of assets to do that, or you have to convince someone to come play here for very cheap, and that person is going to have to look at the roster around him and say, "Man, am I really a fit here?" So they're backed up against it a little, but I do believe, yes, they would like to change that. They would like to change that sort of window that they've created for themselves, where we've got one style of play. That's the only style we can play. I think they want to get out of that. I just don't know that it's necessarily easy to do.
I saw a story that you could, a Nerlens Noel as a possibility. You could probably make a deal and give them something that would get, Nerlens Noel. And he's the kind of guy, he's a Clint Capella-like guy that can run, that can play some defense, and he can dunk the basketball. And you're not doing a back-to-the-basket guy anymore. That's not happening in the NBA much at all anyway. But you're just looking for tall people that can actually play some defense, I think. And I think that's a possibility. And whether or not it's going to be, I don't know what style. We don't even know who Raphael Stone is, if he believed in what Darryl was doing, or if he, somehow what his thoughts are on basketball. This is all up in the air right now as far as what we're going to see. Silas was in Dallas, where they threw up a boatload of threes. They were second in three-point attempts to the Rockets. They were first in three-pointers made. So they're probably going to be doing a lot of that same stuff that they did. What they did better, though, was actually make them. That was the thing about Daryl Morey I could never believe. Let's shoot a lot of threes. Well, what about let's make a lot of threes? I mean, that would be great. Not be 23rd in the league in three-point percentage when that's all we do. I mean, let's find shooters. That was so amazing to me that some of the guys that he brought in here that you said, well, wait a minute, isn't this about three-point shooting? What about getting some three-point shooters? That'd be great. And now, is there mounting evidence what we saw with the Rockets going 0 for 27 in threes and losing that series to Golden State, pulling Greinke because of numbers, Kevin Cash pulling Blake Snell, small ball really not working. All of these analytics and progressive strategies, AJ, are we going to start to see people get back to more traditional thinking, managerial-wise and general manager-wise? But before you answer that, AJ, let's talk about cold, clean, crisp, and refreshing in Coors Light. There was just, I don't know if you saw this week, there was a tweet of me. I was DK Metcalf, and Coors Light was Buda Baker, and I chased it down, and I caught it, and I tackled it.
I saw that. That's a very good tweet.
You don't have to run like DK Metcalf to get a Coors Light. All you have to do is run up to the grocery store and pick up 12, 16, or 144 ounces of Texas Chill, because that's chill, baby. I'm chilling with my cold, clean, crisp, refreshing Coors Light. It's the official beer of everything I do. Make it your official beer, Coors Light. Now, you think we get more back to traditional sports sometime soon, AJ?
I don't think that we go all the way back, but I do think what these teams that are analytics driven have to realize is no one's hiring a manager to just be a robot and read a card and say, this is what I do in this situation. Otherwise, what are you paying the guy for? I think the manager has to have some sort of a feel for the game. And I think Kevin Cash being the most recent example of a guy who had no feel for the game. He had a pitcher out there dominating, and in the regular season, they would have said, okay, let's go to the bullpen, but you have to have a feel. The playoff environment, you have to have a feel for how Blake Snell looks. You have to have a feel for one of the hits he gave up. The hit that he had just given up is a little blooper, broken bat, nubber over second base. You can't just say, well, the card says I got to get him. It doesn't work that way. At some point, the manager has to manage the game as it's happening, and we all saw it. We all saw what was happening. I think that's what everybody who utilizes analytics heavily really has to do. They have to stop being a robot and a slave to analytics and use analytics as part of their tool bag instead of making it the entire thing.
Well, apparently he forgot his Nick Anderson analytics card because that guy sucked heading into that game. He had given up runs in 6 straight outings. What happened to that analytics? That analytics doesn't – we can't only use this analytics. What about this analytics of a guy that's not pitching well? Because the analytics were there for that as well. I do kind of think that we are going – hey, it's dumb if you don't use analytics. It's dumb because you have to use numbers. I think the shift has really changed baseball. We see so many fewer hits. How many hits up the middle that didn't happen this year or didn't happen for the Astros in that Tampa series? They win the series if it wasn't for the shift. And the shift is all about analytics because they had so many balls that normally would have been base hits that weren't because of the analytics. And you're dumb if you don't use numbers, but you got to use some common sense and you got to use some feel. There is something to, I see it with my human eyes, and I see that Blake Snell is really, really, I see that Greinke is really, really good, and I just don't go get him. Or if I do get him, I go get the best guy in the whole world, even though he's never relieved. I'm going to go get Garrett Cole, who's sitting over there, instead of Will Harris, who had been bad too. We forgot our Will Harris analytics card that night. So, no, I think analytics are here to stay. I really do. But I do think that we could use some more. Like you said, they're not robots. This isn't blackjack where it's just about cards. There's feel to this. There's human beings to this. There's emotions. There's chemistry. There's all kinds of stuff, and we need to use it.